So I was just asked to talk about the role of exploration in a large mining company, just to give you a context of what a large mining company is, I guess. First Quantum Minerals has a market cap of about $10 billion. I don't know if that really qualifies as large these days, certainly not major in terms of compared to BHP and Rio and those sort of companies, but fairly large. Probably we're not that well known here in Australia, being listed overseas, even though we do have a large office here and a couple of our founders live here. We operate 7 mines in 6 different countries. We're primarily a copper mining company and focused on growing in copper. We also produce some nickel, and everything else is a byproduct or a co-product of our copper and nickel mines. The company is really founded was an engineering company that decided to build mines for themselves, basically. So we have a core strength in developing new projects. So we're currently commissioning a new copper mine in Zambia. We're also building a smelter there. We're in construction on a large porphyry copper in Panama. We also have another nickel project that's next door to the Sentinel mine in Zambia that will come on stream once the copper mine's up and running. And we have a couple of other porphyry projects in South America that fill out the development pipeline. So we'll be roughly a 1 million tonne a year copper producer in the next few years. Don't know what's happened there. I think there should be an image there, but we'll move on. So, how is exploration perceived within a mining company when we're not the focus of attention? And the answer is not all that favourably. The word around the coffee machine is, have you found anything yet, from the engineers and the other people that we work with on a day-to-day basis. That cartoon there pretty much sums up the level of understanding that most of our work colleagues that aren't in the exploration group have, and in fact it's probably more sophisticated than what the accountants and admin people know about exploration. Otherwise they wouldn't ask us about the alcohol and our expense claims when we come back from the field. So there is a lack of understanding, and the mines, the guys that make the money, and they have a strong sense of ownership of the company, and they think we're wasting it sometimes. If we do find something, they just think we're doing our jobs, and that's what's supposed to happen. They don't have the understanding that success is the exception rather than the rule in exploration. And things like concrete pour statistics when you're in an engineering focused group gets more interest than drill results. And the other thing, I guess, that's more speaking about outside of the company is that it's often said that major mining companies are not exploring, but in some cases that's a misconception purely because we just don't publish the fact that we're exploring. If we find something, it tends to stay under the radar unless it's gigantic, it's not material, and we don't report it. And one example of that is the nickel project that I mentioned in the previous slide. The Enterprise nickel project in Zambia that we found is about the same size as Nova Bollinger. It has the same amount of metal anyway. It's lower grade, but it's going to be an open pit, and it's right next door to an existing mine, or will be soon an existing mine. So it's just a matter of tacking on a nickel circuit to the copper plant. We'll make a lot of money, but nobody's ever heard of it, and we certainly wouldn't get a $1.8 billion valuation for it. No one's ever given us any exploration awards or anything either, probably because no stockbrokers made any money out of it, so it's just sitting there. So do we even need to explore if we're a large company? Well, the brutal facts are we don't need to replace our, we're not going to run out of any commodity anytime soon. We've just been through the biggest urbanisation phase the planet's ever seen, probably, and we didn't run out of anything. And prices went up a bit, but now they've come back down again. The recent SNL publication on reserve replacement for copper stated that the major copper producers replaced their ore at a rate of 300%. So they found 3 times more reserves than what they produced. So, and I think the average for the major producers in copper anyway is 35 years worth of reserves, so that by definition it's economically viable. You add resources onto that and you're looking at, at least 50 years before you run out of our current resources of copper. And in a growing company like First Quantum, we simply can't find new deposits fast enough to keep up with the growth rate that's expected of a large company. And the alternatives are out there if we don't want to explore. We can buy any number of projects that someone else has already found. And, on this chart there's 40 odd projects, 480 million tonnes of contained copper there, so that should keep us going for a while. And we've bought a few of them, they're the ones in blue. So that's the alternative. The problem with that option is that most of these are dogs, they're zombies, there's something wrong. Otherwise they'd be mines. Not the blue ones though, they're really good. So, the alternatives might seem to be there, but they're not really there, although some of those things, the variables that are preventing them from being mined are not geological, they're non-technical things that other talks have spoken about. So that could change. But exploration fundamentally is about finding better quality projects, ones that are going to make more money. Basically, that's what we're in this game for, is to mine the best projects that we can that's going to give us the maximum return. So if we can go out and find them, that's what we'll do. And if you look at what it costs to buy those things, I've put in 5 cents a pound, that's just a ballpark. I mean, there's a few projects out there that have been bought for around that number, so 5 million tonne contained copper resources, the sort of size thing that First Quantum's looking for, that's $500 million thereabouts. If somebody gave me $500 million and said go and find a 5 million tonne copper resource, I'd back myself to do that. I probably wouldn't do it because I'd just take the 500 million, but I'd suggest most of us would take those odds if we had that sized exploration budget. So we should be able to find them cheaper. The question is, can we find them fast enough and big enough? Can we find a 5 million tonne? We might find, the 500,000 tonne or the million tonne size. I'm talking copper here. That'd be, I don't know, 1 million ounce gold or something compared to a 10 million ounce gold that the majors are after. Those ones are harder to find. So just putting it back into the First Quantum context, we're soon going to be a 1 million tonne per annum copper producer. It means we've got to replace 1 million tonnes a year of resource base. And given that we are building mines at a rate of one every 3 to 5 years, we've got to find a large copper deposit at least once every 5 years. So the conclusion is to do that purely using exploration is going to be pretty hard. And the list of companies that grew to be large, whatever that definition is, purely on the back of exploration is a very short list. In fact, I can't think of any. Western Mining's the obvious one to think of, but actually that failed as a business model because they got taken over by a company that grew faster than they did. So we have to use a combination of exploration and other things like acquisition, mergers and acquisitions, if we want to grow to be a really large company. Just to again highlight the exploration, the FQM growth story. We started out with an acquisition. I think it was a tailings project or something, so those resources were consumed pretty quickly. And then there was a phase of really good Greenfields exploration discovery where we found probably most of this 2.5 million tonnes of copper, which was in the Congo. That's what really set First Quantum on the path to being a large company, and the share price went up and everything was great, and it had a huge impact. So going from small to medium sized exploration in Greenfields really was the driver, and then there was a period of flat where we were putting those things into production and becoming a mid-tier producer essentially. And then these next steps were all pretty much acquisitions of brownfields, So, you know, this is where we bought the Cobra Panama project, and then this is the Taka Taka one. By the time you're up here, if you had 2.5 million tonnes in exploration, which is what, 5 DeGrusses, it really doesn't make any difference to the size of the company's resource base, or probably not much to the share price or anything either. So it gets harder to have an impact on when you just with greenfields when you get to this size. Brownfields obviously is a whole different story, and that's just sort of assumed that we're going to do that. So what role does exploration have? Greenfields, I mean, or generally, I guess. Obviously, we're going to try and make a difference to the mines, and that's resource replacement, brownfields. But it goes beyond that. There's other impacts we can have in exploration. Mine sites are fairly isolated places. They work under enormous, time, production pressure. There's not a lot of time for mine geologists to go and set up research projects or go to conferences like this and get new ideas. So the exploration group can sometimes help be an information sort of conduit to the mines. And at First Quantum, there's no resource development group that does the brownfields or the resource drill outs. Exploration does all of that. Mine site exploration is done by the exploration group. So there's no silos or departments between the mines and exploration, which means there's a better chance for these sort of boundary spanner type people to have a good impact. The other way that exploration can have an impact on the whole company is to be involved in the acquisitions, choosing the right projects and rejecting the bad ones. And at First Quantum, there isn't really a business development group per se. There obviously is, but it's quite a flexible team of people that come together from other departments, including exploration. So we're very much involved. And then if we are going to do greenfields exploration, it's got to be narrowly focused on the really big game changer deposits that can have an impact. And it needs to be consistent and persistent through the cycles, because the bigger you're looking for, the harder it's going to be to find, and the longer the cycle of discovery is going to be. So just expanding on those 3 topics, making a difference to the mines is not just about brownfield, which is sort of almost a given, and it's been covered quite extensively today. It can also be about providing specialist expertise that the mine site can't afford to employ geophysicists and specialist geochemists and do PhD research and all that sort of stuff, but exploration can get in and help with doing that sort of stuff. We tend to be more centralised, and we have systems and processes and things set up which can be also useful to the mine and help them to become more efficient. And we can act as a knowledge transfer between mines who often don't get together as often as exploration, and we're in and out of all the mines across the group, so we can transfer knowledge between all of our mine sites, as well as we're learning from the mines, and hopefully they're learning something from us as well. Just an example of making a difference to the mine. If you have a problem that you're building a new mine and a milling complex, you need to put your crushers and your mills on solid bedrock. But if you've got glacial till or deeply weathered saprolite, you need to know where to put them. This is an example from Kevitsa in Finland. We built a nickel project. Our exploration geophysicist basically insisted that we cover the mine site with EM, partly from an exploration sterilisation point of view, but also because he knew he could map depth of base of till, depth to bedrock using EM. And when he did that, he noted that the previous plan was to put the crusher out here in this brown area, which is indicating deep till. So they were going to put it right in a deep channel, and it would have cost millions of dollars, or they would have had to spend probably millions grid grid drilling to find out depth to bedrock in order to discover this. So it only needed to be moved about 150 metres, but it probably saved, millions of dollars. So the next time we had the same issue was at the Cobra Panama project in Panama, and the previous owners of the project had planned to put the mill right in between two of the pits, which sort of limited the amount of expansion that could happen either to the pits or to the mill, and we wanted to expand the mill straight away. So this time the mining projects group came straight to exploration and asked us to help them, which just shows that the group had some credibility, which was good, and we won some brownie points. So we've now moved the mill based on, again, an EM survey mapping depth to bedrock. And this is a $6 billion project, so just putting the mill in the right place is probably hundreds of millions of dollar type of decision. Acquisitions, when you're making an acquisition, it's all about looking at which projects that are known can go from being down here to being a really big transformational project. Or even better, one that's off to the right, that's even smaller, that's not 5 million tonnes yet, that you can pick up and turn into a major ore body. In acquisitions, there's an awful lot of variables that you have to consider, a lot of risk factors, but geology is the one thing that's not a variable. It was fixed X million years ago when the deposit was formed, so it's got to be the first thing that is used to assess an acquisition. We're the only guys, the exploration group, are the only people that can really tell whether a project has that transformational upside potential, or conversely, whether it's a dog that shouldn't be considered any further. And then only once you've got the geology of your potential acquisition to a comfort level that you want to go ahead, do you bring in the other expertise to do the complex financial modelling and to assess all the other variables. But it's got to be geology first, and that's a major impact that the exploration group can have within a large exploration company. Sometimes it's worth paying above MPV for a really good project if you can see the upside. You obviously need to have that credibility as an exploration group if you're recommending to the board that they should pay more than what a project's worth on paper. It can pay off. More often it goes the other way. You pay too much and the project's a dog. But that's the examples of all the write-downs that the major companies have had over the last few years. But one example of a good acquisition was obviously First Quantum bought Kansanshi, which was considered a difficult project, had difficult metallurgy, still has difficult metallurgy, but I think we paid 25 million up front, another 25 once we reached certain production hurdles. And since then, we've mined 2 million tonnes worth of ore out of it, and it's still got a 7 million tonne resource, so it's been a fantastic buy for $50 million. And Los Bronces is the other obvious one that gets used a lot. They bought a mine, but they found, or they could see the potential of Los Sulfatos during the acquisition, and then confirmed it, and it's 17 million tonnes copper, maybe more. Acquisitions are also a great opportunity for the exploration group to get some quick wins on the board, obviously with drilling out the deposit or brownfields or near mine sort of exploration. We use our acquisitions as a beachhead to expand into new districts, so you get to understand the geology of your acquisition, and then you understand the belt, understand how to operate in a new country, and then you slowly grow and expand exploration into a whole new district. And it's great for team morale to have a new project to go to. Certainly when we bought the Hakira project where this photo is taken in Peru, all of our Zambian geologists put their hand up to go and work there. That was probably before they knew they'd be working at 4,000 metres elevation and living on guinea pig stew for weeks at a time. But, apparently it was a morale booster for them. So when it comes to greenfields in a major mining or a large mining company, it has to be focused on the really large things that can change the company or transform, take it to another level. And these are the things that not many juniors are looking for because they can't afford to. The timelines and the costs are just, too large. Majors have the advantage of being able to go to countries that don't have pre-competitive data or free data and go and get the data, pay for the data, fly surveys, whatever needs to be done to open up new search spaces. It's really about going to, it's a new search space when you're talking greenfields, either a new concept or a new geography that hasn't been properly or adequately explored. And it's got to be consistently funded over a long time frame, which means board level support, and that's probably going to mean board level support for longer than the tenure of the average CEO or decision maker. So it's almost got to be culturally embedded. And if we're relying on juniors to find these, we're going to struggle because most of them are going to run out of money before they make a discovery, even if they do it really well. That's because exploration, the process, the mechanics of it are really easy, but discovery's the hard part. And the bigger the target you're looking for, the easier it is because you're just going to reject everything, basically. It's not going to be big enough. But the discovery part is hard, and the thinking about coming up with good targets is also hard. And you need to get the best people, the smartest people into the room to do that. And they probably don't all work for you, so you've got to use consultants and work with researchers and academia to get new ideas in, train up your team, and stick at it for a long time. So it's just a photo of one of the many meetings that First Quantum have with academics and consultants and a bunch of our project geologists, who you can see are really excited about it. One's yawning there, and one's updating their Facebook status, I think. But no, we don't think of exploration as a secretive process. We're not in competition with that many other groups. We're certainly not in competition with juniors. We see, any new discovery is a good one as long as we can buy it. We'll do that. We prefer to make them ourselves, and we're trying to do that. But we don't keep too many secrets. We're happy to be collaborative, and we try and bring in external experts as often as we can. So just recapping, these are the different scales that we work within in exploration. Brownfield's pretty obvious. If it's within trucking distance to a mine, then it's brownfields, and there's not too many hurdles. Any size will do, as long as it's economic to put it through the mill, then it's good enough, and every target is going to be tested. It's just about prioritising them, that's all. We then take the knowledge that we've learned from our brownfields and apply it to a belt or a district and try and find another one, more of the same. So this is about mine replacement rather than resource replacement. They'll be standalone, but they'll have synergies. And we can leverage off what we know about the mine to find new ones in a belt. These areas are typically pretty data heavy, and there will be a lot of competition to get good ground. But they're just the sort of things you plug away at, and hopefully you find another one or two of what you already got. Greenfields is a totally step change difference. It's concept driven, it's data poor, it's the size hurdles of what you're looking for are going to be huge, and only the best targets are going to be tested. So it's a different expertise altogether, and it needs a really long time frame to be successful. So just in conclusion, to survive in a mining company that doesn't have a lot of understanding of what exploration does, in order to be successful, you've really got to align with the corporate strategy. That means only looking for what you want to find, and for us that's really big deposits, which narrows things down to we're looking for porphyries and Z-hosted stuff. I think a lot of what we do in Dreamfields is about not having a to-do list, but have a stop doing list. We've stopped doing VMS exploration. We don't explore for IOCGs either. There just aren't enough examples of big ones out there. We'll happily mine either of those types of commodity, but we're not going to try and find them ourselves. We'll buy one if someone else finds one, but we're going to focus our exploration greenfields on porphyries and sediment-hosted copper, and a little bit of magmatic nickel copper as well. And we've got to clearly communicate our exploration plan to the board and be realistic about the timeframes for discovery. More importantly, the failure, the expectation of failure, and not try and dress things up as technical successes. Technical successes are worse than failures in many ways. It's a bit like, picking up a pen to write something down and the pen doesn't work. Well, the pen's a technical success, but it's even more frustrating than not having a pen, because it's the same result. You can't write anything down. So you've just got to clearly communicate that a failure is a failure and it's going to be the most likely outcome. But if you keep doing your job well and sticking at it, we will have discoveries. And again, it's pretty much about having the board on side to keep the money flowing to greenfields to make it successful. Brownfields and project scale exploration can fluctuate according to the needs of the company, price cycles or whatever, but greenfields needs to be consistent, and it's really got to be embedded in the culture, because you've got to keep going longer than most of any individual on the board or the executive is probably going to be there. So that's about it.
We're running a little bit behind.